How could one man lead an entire nation into war, genocide, and destruction? Adolf Hitler did not seize power by brute force alone. Instead, he was invited in. Millions welcomed him, voted for him, and stood by as his regime stripped away freedoms, targeted minorities, and plunged the world into chaos. Understanding why so many followed Hitler is not just a study of history, it is a profound exploration of human nature and what it reveals about ourselves. Because the truth is, it wasn't just Hitler, it was the millions who followed him. The fallout of Versailles. To understand why Hitler found such fertile ground in Germany, we must first look at the aftermath of World War I. Germany was defeated and humiliated, forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles. This treaty demanded harsh reparations, severe military restrictions, and Germany's acceptance of sole guilt for the war. The economic consequences were catastrophic. By 1923, hyperinflation ravaged the country. Money became worthless. Entire families watched their life savings evaporate. A loaf of bread, once affordable, could cost over 200 billion marks. Hunger and despair were widespread. But the damage was not only economic. The emotional toll was profound. National pride was shattered. Veterans returned home feeling betrayed and ignored. The new Weimar Republic, a fragile democracy established after the war, was widely blamed for Germany's suffering. Many Germans felt abandoned, powerless, and humiliated. This bitter resentment created a vacuum, a desperate search for someone who could restore pride and offer hope. Hitler stepped into that void. A message people wanted to hear. Hitler's rise wasn't based on complex ideology or military might alone. He spoke a message that millions of Germans wanted desperately to hear. He told them they had been wrong, that their country could be great again. He painted the past as a nightmare that could be reversed. Most importantly, he cast Germans as victims, not failures. To simplify the nation's problems, Hitler pointed fingers at convenient scapegoats. Jews, Marxists, foreigners. His speeches filled stadiums, electrifying crowds. His gaze seemed to pierce the soul of every listener. His words planted seeds of belief that soon took root. But the Nazi message was not simply about hate, it was about hope. A vision of a new Germany, strong and united, cleansed of its enemies. This hope was seductive. It gave people purpose and identity in a time of chaos and confusion. Many were willing to overlook the ugliness of the message because they were drawn to the promise of renewal and strength. Propaganda was everywhere. The Nazis were masters of propaganda, understanding that repetition breeds belief. Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda, ensured that Nazi ideology penetrated every aspect of daily life. Radios were subsidized and distributed widely, ensuring Hitler's voice could reach even remote villages. Newspapers were censored to carry only the party line. Films glorified Hitler's image and Germany's supposed revival. Streets and public spaces were plastered with billboards and posters portraying Hitler as the nation's savior. Education was also weaponized. School textbooks were rewritten to promote Nazi ideology, anti-Semitism, and militarism. Children learned to draw swastikas, memorize slogans, and recite tales of Aryan superiority. This indoctrination started early, shaping minds before critical thinking could take hold. You didn't need to believe everything outright. You just needed to believe enough. The constant presence of Nazi propaganda made their worldview the default reality for millions, leaving little room for dissent. Why obedience felt safe. In times of uncertainty and upheaval, obedience often feels safer than rebellion. Hitler offered clarity in a chaotic world. He named enemies and set simple rules about who was in and who was out. For many, following the party was a way to avoid isolation, punishment, or worse. The fear of exclusion or retribution kept many people silent, even when they knew or suspected the regime's cruelty. But silence wasn't always driven by fear alone. Some genuinely believed they were doing the right thing, that supporting Hitler was the path to restoring Germany's greatness. Psychological experiments decades later, like Stanley Milgram's obedience studies, demonstrated that ordinary people often comply with authority figures, even when asked to perform harmful acts. This helps explain how many Germans could participate in or tolerate atrocities simply because they were told to obey. When evil pays, the Nazis also delivered on some promises, at least superficially. Germany's economy improved. The government built highways, reduced unemployment, and revived military pride. Families who had once felt hopeless began to see a future again. For many, following Hitler meant economic security. If your job was restored or your farm protected, it became harder to question the cost of such stability. Some individuals and businesses directly prospered from Nazi policies, benefiting from stolen Jewish property or rising through party ranks. This created a dangerous dynamic. Complicity was not only safe, but profitable. Choosing to do nothing or actively supporting the regime seemed to offer personal rewards, blurring moral boundaries. Belonging and national identity. The Nazis redefined what it meant to be German. Their vision promised unity, but only on their terms. To belong, you had to fit their mold. Aryan, loyal, obedient. Questioning Hitler was equated with questioning Germany itself, which carried social and even physical dangers. In this context, belonging became a powerful force. The Nazi Party offered community through uniforms, songs, parades, and shared myths. For people desperate for identity and connection, this sense of belonging was irresistible. Once inside the group, it became increasingly difficult to see the regime's lies or to leave. Social pressures and the fear of exclusion created a powerful web of conformity and silence. Hatred was taught. Nazi anti-Semitism did not emerge in isolation. It tapped into centuries of European prejudice and deep-rooted stereotypes about Jews. Jews were portrayed as greedy, foreign, disloyal, the ultimate scapegoats for Germany's problems. Other groups, such as the Roma, disabled individuals, and political opponents, were soon added to the regime's list of enemies. This hatred was taught in schools, reinforced in communities, and amplified by propaganda. While some adults looked the other way, children learned to internalize these hateful messages from a young age. This systemic dehumanization made later violence and persecution easier to accept. The cost of silence. Perhaps one of the most chilling lessons from Nazi Germany is the cost of silence. Many ordinary Germans witnessed atrocities but said nothing. Neighbors watched as Jews were rounded up and deported, but remained silent. Teachers saw children disappear from classrooms and said nothing. After the war, millions claimed ignorance, yet the evidence suggests the signs were clear. This silence was not passive. It made the